We wrap up our series of NFL draft recap with the West. It is the NFC West on today's edition of the Audible. See Salami Sigmund Bloom, and I absolutely love what the Arizona Cardinals did with their first two picks. It is Marvin Harrison Jr., arguably the best wide receiver in this draft class, Bloom. And it was very interesting when, kind of coming up with some negatives for Harrison. Okay, he's not the biggest, he's not the fastest. He gets open and catches everything though. Like, I don't know. Reminded me of Calvin Johnson, although Johnson was very large and very fast as well. But Harrison is there. They get their guy, and then they get my guy, Darius Robinson. There's only one player that's reminded me of Aaron Donald. And is he an edge? Is he a tackle? He can do both, whatever. And he's not Aaron Donald. Don't at me, bro. But when I was at the Senior Bowl, I've seen three players like really light up there. One's Aaron Donald, two's Von Miller, three might be Darius Robinson. Like, he was fantastic. And I know it's just an all-star game, whatever, but he's got the quickness off the line. He's got multiple moves, tenacity, plays with a high motor. Like, love this pick. So glad he went in the first round. I felt that's where he should go, and he did go. Then I love their third pick, Max Melton. Rutgers, again, Senior Bowl guy, saw physicality, size, loves to be feisty with receivers out there. So love that Rutgers corner. Trey Benson in the third round out of Florida State. A lot of people had Jonathan Brooks. Of course, I have Marshawn Lloyd as the top back, but I've seen some people that are like Trey Benson, like, okay, sure. You can see some things with him, of course, as well. We'll see how Arizona uses him. Lots of picks here, Bloom. Let's get through the rest. Isaiah
Yeah.
Adams, Illinois offensive tackle. Tip Ryman, Illinois tight end. Elijah Jones, Boston College cornerback. Dadrian Taylor Demerson, Texas Tech safety. Xavier Thomas, Clemson edge. Loved him at the Shrine Bowl. It's a great fifth round pick. Christian Jones, Texas offensive tackle. Taquan Palmer, UAB wide receiver. And Jaden Davis, Miami corner, there to wrap things up in a very robust draft.
Yeah, Monty Austin 7 picks in the first 90, 8 in the first 104. So a lot of opportunity here to put your stamp on this roster. Jonathan Gannon. So Marvin Harrison ends up being the pick. Marvin Harrison Jr. Lots of speculation. JJ McCarthy, it's gonna be a trade up. No trade up, and partially because Harrison's just that good. So they get, and stylistically, we could talk wide receiver aesthetics or skill sets, but just remember Larry Fitzgerald on this team and how, especially in that Super Bowl run, if they needed a play, he made a play. Harrison can be that guy for them. He can be that guy for Kyler Murray. He is, and just such a high floor prospect. Certainly a number one overall pick, quality player. And you mentioned Darius Robinson. What you like about him, especially Cease, is he is the kind of player that also frees up his teammates to make plays. I'm remembering like Chandler Jones. I mean, just a player that's disruptive, power, athleticism, size, can line up a lot of spots. They needed a player exactly like him. This is that Will Anderson trade, not the one that everyone expected in terms of draft capital they got for it. But they got a good player. They trade down, get another pickup into that top 100 when they get Melton. But Melton, like you said, Cease, he's got the length, he's got the speed, he's got the competitiveness. They needed him. So here's 3 players that are probably going to start right away and upgrade their units. Benson, there's your succession plan for James Conner. Looks like a feature back, hasn't been a feature back, may become one. So this is a great spot for him to land. Doesn't hurt Conner as much this year, but I think Benson, hopefully you get that skill set well-rounded for a 3-down back next year. The rest of the picks in the third round, and you really see the talent drop off. I mean, there's a drop off between this. It was a strong second round this year, maybe a first round that petered out before the end of the first round, like a typical first round. And then the third round, so some players, a developmental guard in Adams. They trade down, small trade down, get Ryman, really athletic tight end, project. Jones, interesting thing here about Jones, Cease, and this is courtesy of Dane Brugler, Elijah Jones. His dad is DJ Alamo from Brand Nubian. So shout out
There you go.
Old school rap. Length, speed, explosion. Again, Taylor Demerson, a ball hawk, a little bit small, but a ball hawking safety. Thomas, a developmental rusher. So the tail end of these picks, you get some players that are going to step in right away and upgrade this team, and then you get some players if you coach them up that 2-3 years down the line might be doing that. That they lose a pick for tampering, lose some draft capital, they traded away for Dobbs. They do on the third day get a swing tackle, maybe in Jones. Then they get Palmer, Tayshaun Palmer, if I'm saying that right, a speed merchant, certainly somebody that they can work in as a practice squad wide receiver or maybe last on the roster to add some vertical speed. And then they also get some more speed in that last pick, Davis, a corner. So this is a big draft for Arizona. And see, it's kind of like the tortoise and the hare, Monty Austin Fort, you're trying to catch San Francisco and the Rams and Seattle. They're going to be given some patience, but this class is going to be a really important class. Not the top half, because I think the top four are going to be fine. It's that bottom four, I think, that may allow this team to catch up in time.
Yeah, in time it'll be there. And with Jonathan Gannon, I mean, I absolutely love
Right.
the guy. Absolutely love the guy. So we'll see. It's on Kyler. Kyler doesn't do it this year. They're going to replace him. As much confidence as they have. So
Yeah.
we'll see. And because they had a zillion draft picks, I can't count. They didn't do anything undrafted wise. What, Xavier Weaver,
Xavier
whatever.
Weaver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Next.
Weaver, I mean, he can get open. There's a lot of guys like this in this draft class. Speed, some quickness, small. There's a role for him.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. LA Rams. I love this. I love that the first two picks were Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, both from Florida State. Finding out they're playing in the NFL
Yeah.
together. You
Yeah.
just love that camaraderie there as well. Either one could have been picked at 19. Either one. Now they wanted Bo Nix. More on that in a little bit. But like Verse, Fisk, and yeah, and maybe I'm different from other people. I think I know I am Bloom, but like I'm higher on Fisk than a lot of people. Anyway, but we'll see how it works out for the Rams. They get their guys from Florida State to work on that defensive line. Blake Corum, Michigan running back, hard charger, of course, lunch pail type of back to work in there with behind Kyron Williams, for the Rams there. Camden Kitchen, sorry, Miami safety. Physical is the name of his game. Brennan Jackson, Washington State edge in the fifth. Sixth round, Tyler Davis, Clemson defensive tackle. I like the Clemson guys late this year. Saw him on an all-star trip. There's Joshua Carty, sorry. Stanford place kicker. Jordan Whittington, Texas wide receiver in the sixth. Looks like Bo Limmer, Arkansas center in the sixth. And then KT Leviston, Kansas State OG to wrap things up.
You loved it, Cease, like you said. They move up. They give up their second round pick next year to move up for Fisk. But you get a combination of players here in Verse, who's a power end, first round pick in a long time for this team. And then you move up against Fisk, and Fisk is your bowling ball of butcher knives. Fisk is your guy that, he's not going to be a plugger against the run, okay? But he's going to penetrate, he's going to disrupt, and he's going to blow plays up. And you put the two together, and I encourage everyone again, if you want to get up in your feels, probably the best get up in your feels phone call and the video was Rams calling Fisk. They're trying to get Verse there through traffic. Second time I'm telling this story. And you have the other camera, like with Verse, like getting out of it. And they're telling him, like, I think it's McVay maybe, or Snead, somebody telling him, like, we wanted to get Verse to make the call, to be the one that called you from team headquarters, but he got caught up in that LA traffic. Finally, Verse grabs the phone and they just, like something guttural and so much feeling, like, Verse, we did it. And then Fisk just breaks down. I mean, just out. And Cease, I think it's one of those moments for the draft. I think it's important to let's let this marinate for, let's get crunchy. Um, so much goes into each one of these guys' development. to get to this point. So much, and what it is it's a high wire act. Becoming a professional football player is a high wire act. One slip and you can fall, and there ain't no net. Um, always, everything is at stake. Always, when you're trying to become a professional football player,
Mm-hmm.
and the stress, and it's not even just about the players. Again, it's that support network around the players too. The stress is almost unimaginable, but you just keep. I mean, this is why I think it's good. It's kind of like 12-step program. Like, put your trust in a higher power, so that you just focus on what's in front of you. You don't think about how much is at stake all the time. We all do this every day in our lives. We all do this every day, but it's very salient for these players. And in Fisk, and again, the other thing is, I mean, football players are one of the paragons of masculinity, symbols of masculinity, and to see emotion, overwhelmed by emotion, and for both of them in that moment, I think everything that had been building up their lives in that moment all came out. Something about greeting each other, like, we did it, we made it to the other side, and we're together again. It just,
Mm-hmm.
a dam broke inside of both of them. It was really beautiful, and it's the kind of stuff that can create magic on the football field. And it's about a team. Remember, teams are families, and that's family. So I'd love what the Rams did here. I'd love it. And giving up the second next year to make it happen shows me clarity, a plan. Maybe they didn't get Bo Nix. Maybe that was plan A and thinking ahead. We'll talk about this more when we get to Denver. But this is beautiful. And then Corum. And look, I'm not a fan of running backs like Corum in the scouting process, simply because in the NFL, a back like Blake Corum is going to be the second or third most athletic back on his roster,
I was going to say third.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, but on this roster, he's the most athletic, right? He is. I mean, at least in terms of measurables. And the thing about Blake Corum is he's not going to get outworked. High character guy, and very sound as a running back, like Coach Catnip, just a sound running back in a good offense. This is a tremendous fantasy spot for him. I asked Cameron De Silva, beat writer at the USA Today, what he thought. He said he had Kyron Williams in one of his dynasty leagues. Haha. And he hoped it would be 95-5, but he said 70-30. But a key here is Corum's an excellent goal line runner. So expect him to get the touchdowns. So for fantasy, this gets closer to 50-50. But I think you could even see Blake Corum convince the coaches that they need to flip this backfield. Because again, he does have a little more to offer athletically, at least on paper, than Kyron Williams. And I think that he's a running back that could really click in this offense. They get Kinchins, who's a skilled safety, not as athletic, and why you're falling this far in the draft. They try hard edge and Jackson. They traded away a pick to get Zach Evans. Oops. So you see this Blake Corum pick, that could be the part of the death knell for Zach Evans. Davis is a smart, aware, depth defensive tackle, maybe lacking some upside. They get a kicker. That's it. I'll say about that every time we get one of those. Jordan Whittington, a possession receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Limmer is a really interesting pick. Dane Brugler had him in the 4th round. He's got athletic ability. He's got a mean streak. Not sure why he fell, but remember, this is a Rams team. Let's take this in for a moment while we're talking about them. Last year's class, um, I think if you'd say, like, in terms of investment to return, like a top 10 draft class in the last 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
based on what year one returns.
ROI, right?
A stellar draft class, especially considering what little they had to invest. They had more to invest in this one. But a guy like Limmer on the 3rd day, watch him end up being a starter for them. Or even Levinston, who's a left tackle, you're turning into a guard. So how many times do we have failed or tackles that just don't translate as tackles in the NFL end up being excellent guards? The Rams already having that foresight. So remember, the Rams are supposed to be rebuilding. No, man, the Rams they're still right there.
Yeah, right there. Matthew Stafford, stay healthy. Undrafted guys, Drake Stoops can
Yep.
play Cooper Kupp on the scout team.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bob Stoops kid, uh, just a classic slot receiver. And I think that just in this organization, like you said, Cease, he's a guy who could stick around.
Can stick around. San Francisco 49ers. Ricky Persall in the first round. Okay, interesting. He was one of those to me, like second to third
Yeah.
round. He was like Troy Franklin, right? Like, okay, I know he's going to go early. There's this cluster of players. I called it the Malik Washington line. Like, I like all these receivers. Malik Washington's the last one, and then after that, it's a little thin. It's a little thin. So Persall goes at the end of the first. All right, 49ers know what they're doing. We'll see. Is anybody traded yet? Like
Right.
Brandon Ayuk, we really like him. We're not going to trade him. Uh, Debo Samuel, we really like him. We're not going to trade him. Well, okay. What are you going to do now? Putting more summer stock around Brock Purdy. Renardo Green, a Florida State corner in the second. Dominic Pooney, Kansas offensive tackle. Malik Mustafa, Wake Forest safety in the fourth. Isaac Urendo, Louisville running back in the fourth. Jacob Cowing, Arizona wide receiver in the fourth. Jared Kingston, USC OG in the sixth, and Tatum Bethune, Florida State linebacker, to wrap things up in the seventh.
It's tough drafting 31st, especially 31st in overtime. Ugh, yeah. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, San Francisco?
Yeah.
Uh, you're at the end of the round. You're not going to make a big impact, but Pearsall, you're looking ahead to the future. Whether or not Debo Samuel, it's not going to be Ayuk. They're going to sign Ayuk. I think San Francisco is one of those organizations. In the end, they're going to do the right thing. And when it comes to keeping, the DeForest Buckner trade aside, they're going to generally keep the right guys. And I think Ayuk's the right guy here, and Debo is probably the guy who's on his way out, if not this year, next year. And Pearsall what he gives them in terms of an upgrade from Debo is as a route runner, as inside outside guy, a little bit of a finesse receiver. I think you're right to bring up Troy Franklin, a little bit of a finesse receiver, but in this offense, what he offers, what they can do, Brock Purdy there to unlock it. It's going to be for fantasy. You like this destination, and don't worry about, we get way too hung up on year one opportunity for rookies in dynasty leagues. Don't worry about that. Just this is a good fit, and he's going to be playing a lot soon. Green is an interesting corner. Yeah, it's interesting, Cease, when you see which corners land on which teams, because there's a lot of different packages of positives and negatives, right? And they want Green. Green is a sticky cover corner, not very productive on the ball, not speedy, but you can see that just the natural mirroring skills are there. So that's what they were looking for. Pooney, they actually gave up a fourth round pick to train up and get this guy. He's got that punch and he's got the power. And this is another left tackle to guard. But, again, we were talking about this for the Rams as a seventh round pick. For 49ers, it's a third round pick. There's similarities here sometimes between San Francisco and the Belichick, Brady, New England teams where they're staying at the top, not always because of how they use their draft capital.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, they traded a pick for Chase Young. So there's a squandered third round pick. They do get Mustafa. This is the pick they got in the Lance trade, just a competitive box safety, and they can make something out of box safeties in their defense. Guarendo, I don't like.
They got one undrafted that's better than him. We'll get to that in a
Exactly.
little bit.
Again, they did it again. How is it? This is Lucy in the football with Kyle Shanahan, okay? And I think even said the same sorts of things. Speed scores, great. And we'll talk about this with Guarendo. I think he just doesn't play to his measurables. And I have yet to see. I'm trying to think of the last running back that you watch him on tape and you think, okay, he's roughly this quick, this sudden, this fast, and then the tests show that there's more there, and he uncovers it, he finds it in the NFL. It never happens. It gets harder in the NFL. If you don't look impressive and play up to your measurables in college, it's not going to happen in the NFL. But they moved up to get him. Cowing, just a side note here. This pick was moved down 4 spots, a big penalty from the NFL. They moved it to the end of the round, which, if you're San Francisco, is 4 spots because of comp picks for accounting discrepancies. What does that even mean? Something happened. San Francisco did something that wasn't kosher, and the that was the slap on the wrist. Truly, just a slap on the wrist. They get Cowing, who this is a guy that has speed. He can also uncover. He's a guy in this offense, I think, that can add Danny Gray didn't quite work out. This is your new Danny Gray, maybe a role player as a speed vertical wide receiver, even though he's undersized. They gave away a pick to get Christian McCaffrey here. They gave away a pick to get Randy Gregory. They gave away a pick to get Malik Collins. See the pattern here just last year. And hey, they made it to the Super Bowl and they could have won the Super Bowl. So even though none of these guys, I think, played key roles for them, they were trying. They really wanted it. They did get Kingston on the third day, athletic interior line project. And then Bethune's an interesting guy because he's small for a linebacker in the NFL, but he's a leader of his offense, his defense. A leader. He's aggressive. He's always around the ball. Thinking about Ivan Pace last year, the undrafted free agent from Minnesota, who's going to probably start for them. So this kind of linebacker, where you say, well, the way he plays the game, the way he is with his teammates, that's everything you want. He just isn't what the NFL looks for in terms of size. At linebacker, those guys tend to work out.
Cody Schrader can work out. He
Oh,
can
yeah.
work out in a big, big way for the 49ers. Now, first off, when it's the 49ers, they get a running back in the Shanahan system. You're just like, I got to pay attention. Pay attention, everyone, to Cody Schrader. He should have been drafted, should have been an early day 3 pick, falls undrafted, whatever reason. Maybe it's because he's had 2,000 touches from high school and college combined. But at one time, before he was at Missouri, he led the SEC in rushing last year. But at one time at Truman State, had over 2,000 yards rushing and 25 touchdowns. Hard charging only begins to describe his game. Now, he's a little bit straight line-ish for me. So the mix with the zone system is interesting. But all I know about the Shanahan system, if you're going to take
Yeah.
a guy like that, that's been that productive, that has those skills, that wears you down, and he's a compact back that wears you down. How often do we say that, Bloom?
Right.
Right? Because you're 5'8, 205 or whatever he's listed at. Like, you're compact and you can wear guys down. He's tough. Shanahan, zone, he'll have to get used to the zone. Again, he's a little straight line-ish. I would have liked him on a gap system better, but this is the back to pay attention to.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to watch, and it's a rerun. Trey
Again,
Sermon,
yes.
Elijah Mitchell,
Yep.
Tyrion Davis Price, Jordan Mason. And here we go with installment 3. We're not trying to call our shot here, but this sets up this
Yeah.
way. What the point is, it sets up this way where you have a one running back who has potential, who they see as having some sort of athletic ceiling. And then you have a second running back. Now, granted, Mitchell had some good straight line speed, but the point is that the NFL judges these backs as having this kind of gap, and usually the lower rated back is the better actual runner, right? Because the 49ers are overdrafting these backs based on what they think they could be in their system instead of what they already are as a runner. So, yes, Schrader, like you said, hard charging, no nonsense, highly productive in the SEC. And as we've seen time and time again with the Shanahan system, also, it's just, do you understand the system as a runner? Have you really integrated it? Have you internalized it? And I think you're right, Cease, that what we're going to watch here. So the draft is over. We're absorbing it. Your rookie drafts are going on. And the next thing is rookie minicamp, OTAs. It's when you start to hear about these guys separating themselves from each other. And good organizations, I mean, here's the good news, and here's another reason to argue for Schrader, is this is an organization that, Kyle Shanahan will make these calls in the draft. And if by the end of the first summer, the undrafted back or the later drafted back looks better, they move ahead of them. Trey Sermon, what was he active week 1, right? I mean, he's not stubborn about it. So this is going to be definitely a main attraction of pouring over those beat writer reports from rookie minicamp and OTAs to see how these guys are looking right next to each other.
Yes, Seattle to wrap up the NFC West, and we'll get through these picks. There's Byron Murphy, Texas defensive tackle, going in the first, maybe a little bit higher than some people thought, but deserving of that spot, in my opinion. And then they don't pick until the third, and it's Christian Haynes, UConn OG, and then fourth is Tyrese Knight, UTEP two-step linebacker, always going to say it. Fourth rounder, also AJ Barner, Michigan tight end, and then Nehemiah Pritchett, Auburn corner in the 5th, Satoa Lamu, Utah OG in the 6th, DJ James, Auburn corner in the 6th, and then Michael Jarrell, Findlay, offensive tackle. So it's a John Schneider draft.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even though Pete Carroll, it's weird, it's not Pete Carroll, Seattle, it's still a strong draft. A draft you're building from the inside out. So Byron Murphy, some people had him going as high as number 8. Some people had him as the first defensive player off the board. And stop me if you heard it before, as disruptive as you want as a defensive tackle, just a little bit undersized. The name Aaron Donald is always going to come up in these conversations, and it's just to say that if a player produces and disrupts like an elite defensive tackle, but you say, well, he's not an elite defensive tackle prospect because he doesn't have ideal size. That's what they get in Byron Murphy, and I think this is going to be excellent. You're going to have the next pick gone because of the Leonard Williams deal. 3rd round pick. Haynes looks like a starting guard, a smart, strong guard who's going to fit well with this team. They trade down, and remember, they actually gave up some draft capital to get Sam Howell. They trade down even further from that pick. They add a 4th round pick. They get in the 4th round, starting with Knight, run defense, downhill linebacker. That's why he's a 3rd day pick, but could eventually play a pretty big role for the team. They get Barner, Michigan's tight end, developmental, not necessarily an exciting receiving prospect, but for a team that cares a lot about blocking from their tight ends, I think that he is somebody that they could probably develop into a starter or certainly a top 2 tight end for them. Pritchett, length, speed, developmental corner. Laumea is again, power guard. James, small, aggressive nickelback. We've seen these guys do well as a contrast to the long, fast corners that they have outside, and they get a developmental tackle from Findlay at the end of the draft.
Yeah, here we go. Undrafted wise, Westover? He's from Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there you go. So H-back, and in their new look offense, we'll have some college concepts. Could know how to use an H-back like Westover, who also can play special teams. Jack Westover, Washington. So went to college there, grew up there, now playing professional ball there. We're rooting for him.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of connections to the area and to this Washington team that comes up a lot in this draft too. I'll bring up George Holani, who's just the next state over at Boise State. 3rd down back type. Maybe the sum is greater than the parts as he falls out of the draft, but we know he can play.
We know that you have all been waiting for the AFC West, and hopefully these entire shows, but
Right.
will I
Right.
lose my mind?
Get your hot sauce out. You got some hot sauce.
That's a spicy meatball. All right, that's a wrap for the NFC West. It is the Audible, Cecil Lammy, Sigmund Bloom. Certainly appreciate you all. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. We wrap up our draft recap, our annual tradition, with the AFC West, and we'll do it next. It's the Bo Nix Show, the big show. That's right. It is the Audible AFC West draft recap. Cecil Lammy, Sigmund Bloom, and let's talk about Sean Payton's guy. Truly Sean Payton's guy. I will tell you that with a certainty. And Sean Payton played the game because before the draft, I was like, I think they like JJ McCarthy. They'd take Bo Nix if McCarthy's gone. They didn't like JJ McCarthy. In fact, very few teams did. Minnesota, you got your guy. We've talked about that before. Now, Caleb Williams was Sean Payton's first guy. Of course, he even raved on him when he was on Fox Sports. He said, this is why the draft, you need a lottery because you tank for a guy like Caleb Williams. He had the opportunity. They were 1-5 with Russell Wilson. He didn't bench Russ. And so they're picking at 12. And they're picking Bo Nix. By the way, Jaden Daniels was their number 2 because, of course, Jaden Daniels was their number 2 with his LSU connections. So Sean Payton, let me get this straight.
Okay.
He gets a guy that's a supercomputer in Bo Nix that is all about ball, right? And all he does think about ball, talk about ball, wants to be about ball. That's all he is. And very businesslike. I asked Bo about that at his introductory presser, because I saw it at the Senior Bowl where he was a jerk to me, which I'm fine with. I actually like that. I like a guy with some fire. He even had fire in that presser. I think it was Chris Thomason. God bless Chris Thomason. You want to talk about old school beat writer, come from
Mhm.
Minnesota, now in Denver, and Chris will just ask you the tough question, and he doesn't even care. He's awesome. He's awesome to be around. So Chris at the introductory presser was like, yeah, you throw a lot of short passes. What do you say to
Yeah.
people that? And then Bo shot back like, I compete a lot of long passes. It's kind of like the Jared Goff. These tiny hands threw a lot of touchdowns. And I bring up Jared Goff for a reason. I think he's a smarter Jared Goff. Now that's not being personal. Don't send me a memo on it. But like, I think you have a smarter Jared Goff. That's a good quarterback. All right. And in this system, Bo Nix didn't fit everywhere. Bloom,
Mhm.
you know this. He didn't
Mhm.
fit everywhere,
Mhm.
but he fits like a mother blaping glove. Sorry, Joe, in Denver with Sean Payton. I just want to be a fly on the wall when these two chop it up, like when they're together and it's just ball. Because that's all. I mean, imagine how Peyton's going to scheme up these things, and everything that he says, in a way, just gives you a reflection or an insight of what he had to deal with last year with Russell Wilson, who could not run his offense. That's just the way it was. Now he gets a guy. Sale concepts are back. The middle of the field's back. Slant routes are back. Like, you're going to see all these sorts of things. I think he starts from day one. The Zach Wilson thing's a lottery ticket. Who cares? But it is about Bo Nix with this team, taking him at 12. They couldn't move back and get him. You had the Raiders right behind you who were mad about Penix being taken because they wanted Michael Penix. They really wanted Jaden Daniels, but they couldn't get it done. You had the Rams and the Saints, from what I know, and Seattle maybe would have been in on Bo Nix. Also, the quarterback, as I told you on this show, the quarterback that the Giants did the most work on was Bo Nix. Not Bo Nix in the top seven, six specifically. But they would have traded back in the end of the first to get Bo Nix. If he would have fell to the end of the first, he wasn't ever going to fall to the end of the first. He was always a top 15 pick. The Broncos take him in the top 15. Third round pick, Jonah Ellis, Utah Edge. I am old enough to remember when his dad was with the
Right.
Broncos, and I was a
Right.
credentialed media member in 2004. There you go. Sick brag, bro. Troy Franklin, Oregon wide receiver. How do you make it to the fourth? Hell, I don't know. I mean, he is undersized, but Sean Payton's already told you he's the Z. And I guess this is where I sound like an aloha bloom. Well, more
Mm.
than I normally do. The Z tells you so much. Like, I even told Mark Schlereth yesterday on the air, I was like, we got to talk about X and Z more because I've praised, like, oh my God, he's a Z. And people are like, yeah, no, that means he's a flanker. That means you can put him in motion. That means, hey,
Mhm.
that guy that's really fast, you give him a clean start from the start,
Yeah.
right? You're not worried about him getting jammed at the line of scrimmage. And then I thought, well, what's Marvin Mims? Because he was supposed to be the Z. Like,
Yeah.
Mims can't run routes yet, though. I hope he does. Greatest ever, whatever I have to say. Like, the straight up truth. And I asked Joe Lombardi about it last year. He didn't answer me. He gave me an answer, but it wasn't a good answer. I was like, how do you get Marvin to run better routes? I might have asked it a little bit nicer, but like, I like Marvin Mims. But you got Troy Franklin there, man. That dude can play. Chris Abrams, Drain, Missouri Corners, Feisty, Audric Estime. They got Javante. But they got Javante of today, not Javante of
Right.
old. Javante of
Right.
today is, 3.6 yards a carry. So they got another Samaje P. Ryan Javante, whatever is whatever. They got an undrafted guy
Mhm.
who is my favorite. Devon Vele from Utah. Yeah, he's 8 years out of college or whatever the number is because he had a 3-year mission in Samoa. He's Tim Patrick, basically. And then Nick Gargulio, South Carolina center to wrap things up in the seventh.
Well, yeah, they get the guy, Nix, and it makes sense. It I think that we have to look at the quarterback position and say, at this point, the amount of draft capital you use doesn't matter if you get it right.
Mhm.
And that's it. If you get it wrong, well, then yeah, it matters whether it's a second round pick or a late first round pick or an early first half of the first round pick. And it makes sense as a fit. And we have a spectrum here. You mentioned Jared Goff. You could throw Mac Jones out there too, right? And I think Brock Purdy's at the other end of the spectrum. So what we have here is an archetype of quarterback where not necessarily gifted in terms of arm talent and arm strength. Uh, some athletic tools, maybe, but not a quarterback who wins by being an 11 on 11 running threat. Okay. But they are an extension of the coach, or at least that was the plan with Mac Jones, right? And
Yeah.
that's how Jared Goff worked his best football. So, again, part of it, you say, I mean, I think this is a perfectly fine argument, especially when Goff was with the Rams. And now the Lions are looking at giving Goff a big contract, right? Well, it's like, well, if the quarterback is just doing it by being an extension of the coach, that is a larger pool of quarterbacks. It doesn't have to be top 3 overall pick type quarterback for your offense to work. You can get away with a Brock Purdy, not just get away with, but because he meshes so well with the offense, he's now going to get $50 million a year in a few years, right? But you're not. Everybody wants a quarterback, like you said. The Rams, all these teams, Saints. Of course, he would make sense as a replacement for Derek Carr, and all these teams are going to be lining up for a quarterback again next year. So there aren't going to be. Stephen Ruiz wrote a piece that came out today about there aren't going to be second round quarterbacks. Really, it used to be that it was a commitment to take a quarterback in the first round, that you really had to have a strong sense of certainty. And now it's like, is there a guy in this class that fits? Take him in the first round.
Hmm.
And because Bo Nix is the kind of quarterback that in some drafts falls to the second round, but not in this current NFL. And of course, it kind of starts the clock for Sean Payton at this point. I mean, I think if Bo Nix doesn't work out, then it's going to be curtains for him eventually. You get to Ellis. Ellis was also the team chaplain for a couple of years in
For
Denver. His
Super Bowl
dad.
50. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What a family. Caden, Christian, Noah, and now Jaden all have made it to the NFL. Um, the third round pick they gave up to move up for Riley Moss. How's Riley Moss doing?
They didn't play him last year. He might start opposite Sertan this year. It was a mistake to not play him last year. He was a little banged up, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of part of this year's draft class. And then they move up for Troy Franklin. And like you said, Cease, the headline here is, danger Marvin Mims because of the overlap. Almost maybe as an admission in there that they're not really sure that Mims is going to work out. And I like the aggressiveness to get back to the top of the fourth and get him because, like you said, Cease, in a certain role, his weaknesses as a finesse wide receiver can be masked, and you can certainly have him. And then, of course, you have the connection. You have to think that Bo Nix was at least consulted because you have a couple of days to watch the draft unfold and say, do we go up and get Franklin? So that familiarity is good. Abrams drain, again, slot corner, a little small, very productive. Like this pick. Estime you love. This is it. I mean, like you said, Cease, I mean, you said it so matter of factly, but I how does Estime not take over this backfield very quickly? Because it's the same qualities that they like in
Right.
Pirine and Williams, but with fresher legs. I think is kind of elementary. And then Veals, another Tim Patrick. I mean, that's the idea,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I like the clarity there, knowing that you have this certain type. Uh, Gargiulo is versatility, moves well, come in. Work out as an eighth offensive lineman on game days, maybe in a pinch. Let's get to your guy, and the undrafted free agent.
Yeah, it's Blake Watson. Outside of Cody, we talked about with the 49ers, like Blake Watson is fan flipping tastic. And he's a player saw down at the Shrine Bowl, talked about his pass protection, which is not an issue. People say, oh, he's a smaller back. Again, he's compact and he doesn't take a lot of punishment. He knows how to be sinewy with the way that he moves. How often do we use that as a description? He's a fantastic receiver out of the backfield. He's a very focused young man. Like, again, could be something, could be nothing, but this team, whether it's Philip Lindsay or CJ Anderson, they might have got another one from the undrafted ranks. His name is Blake Watson, and he could do it all. He's not the banger, but did you get part of that? And it was John Murphy who reminded me on Twitter, like there was one time when Sean Payton had like Chris Ivory, Darren Sproles, Reggie Bush, Mark Ingram.
Right.
Remember when that backfield looked like that?
Mm-hmm.
So now it could be Audric Estime, Blake Watson. I don't know. They probably won't keep Javante after this year. That's just a guess. And Jaleel McLaughlin, Jaleel McLaughlin
Yeah.
can't pass protect. Blake Watson can. And I love Jaleel, and they actually promoted Jaleel during the jersey unveilings. So it's like, okay, they like Jaleel, but if you can't protect your quarterback, it doesn't matter. Like, so yeah, Blake Watson, maybe they stash him on a practice squad, although I would steal him away, Bloom, if I could.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just add to this, and Blake Watson will certainly be the highest ranked undrafted running back, and I have him ahead of a lot of running backs that got drafted in addition, because it's so easy to picture this backfield as Estime and Watson next year. I mean,
Hmm.
just they fit together perfectly.
Yes.
And I think that bringing up that Saints backfield, that ideal Saints backfield, and what you consider when you look at those four parts together is how there is a little bit of overlap, but they're all very distinct types of running back that in different roles as the running back can maximize that role. And I think even when you add in McLaughlin, like you said, Cease, there's a weakness, there's something you don't want to leave him exposed to do, but then there's his speed, his big play ability too. So you're getting these pieces together, maybe a little more Darren Sproles-esque there. So yeah, this is really nice. I think what Sean Payton did with this running back duo is show how cheaply you can refresh your backfield now. I mean, what's Javonte Williams, early second round pick? Ugh.
Hmm.
McLaughlin, they paid nothing for, right? And now you could see your backfield next year where the most expensive running back is a fifth round pick and a very productive and effective backfield.
Yeah, and then you rotate through the next one.
Yeah.
Sorry to all the running backs out there. It's a brutal, that's for sure. You said I didn't have any vitriol, Bloom, when we were like previewing
Mhm.
this. It's like, well, sometimes relationships change, Bloom.
Yeah, and
Sometimes
hey,
they blossom.
and that's okay. I think that it's good actually. There is something to optimism. I know that the Broncos have been in a place. I don't want to say too much, but I think that when you have access to a team like you do, Cease, you can become discouraged because of things that you can't talk about. So
Mhm.
maybe that's I'll leave it at that.
That's the best way to leave it as we go to Kansas City. Buffalo, what? What?
And San Francisco. You're
Uh,
t and San Francisco helped them too. How is it that Kansas City gets the teams that they just destroyed their hearts
I
to
know.
help them in the draft?
I know. It's crazy. Like, it was a down year for Kansas City and they won it all. Well, good luck beating them now. I mean, my God, Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy. Hey, the guy that's the blur, he's basically the Flash. Um, Quicksilver, if you want, if you're a Marvel fan. Like, what? What? You allow Kansas City? Free agency is one thing, right? You can pay for whatever you get to ever. But in the draft, and someone's not jock blocking these guys. Like, hey, that wait till I get to Jared Wiley. I'm just gonna skip to Jared Wiley. Okay, like this is
Yeah.
my favorite tight end, and Brock Bowers obviously amazing. Whatever, he's number one tight end by a long shot. Oh, by the way, Kingsley Suamatala, BYU offensive tackle in the second. Jared Wiley in the fourth. This is how bad it was. Day three, doing the draft coverage.
Mhm.
Fortunately, I was at home. I got physically ill when the Chiefs got Jared Wiley. Like, I told the guy, I think it was Colin, I told him, like, "I'm taking a break." Like, I was physically ill, like that you know how you spit sometimes so you don't
Yeah.
vomit?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so I was like, just duh, 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 because okay, Travis Kelce is getting up there, all right? And he's the greatest of all time, and that's easily an argument we could make, right? He's not gonna play forever. The guy behind him now, and Jared Wiley, is pretty awesome. Not saying he's gonna be Travis Kelce. But again, to recount, when I was at the Senior Bowl and I just was writing down numbers in practice, I was like, "Who's this wide receiver that's so impressive?" It was Wiley. He's not a wide receiver. He's a tight end, but he's big, he's fast, he can catch everything. He's got great body control. Why in the hell did the NFL, the entire league, I blame Buffalo Bloom, you blame the 49ers, let's blame them both. I'm blaming the 31 other teams. You will rue the day that you let Kansas City get Jared Wiley. Maybe not now because Travis Kelce's still playing and he's the greatest or whatever. But like, what the hell, bro? Like seriously. Um, anyway, I'll move on so I don't get physically ill again today. But I love
Here's the
Jared Wiley.
vitriol.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love Jared Wiley. I mean, you don't want KC to win it all again, do you? Stop letting him take Xavier Worthy and Jared Wiley. It's pretty easy. Anyway, fourth round, Jaden Hicks, Washington State safety. Hunter Norzad, Penn State center. Hope I got that right. Kamal Hayden, Tennessee corner in the sixth. And CJ Hansen, Holy Cross, OG to wrap it up.
Just to contrast with San Francisco or even with Buffalo, honestly, because again, when you have a good season, you're picking at the end of the round. You're probably not going to have a truly impactful draft class. You're just trying to tread water and stay at the top, right? But this is an impactful draft class. Worthy brings back some of Tyreek Hill and adds a legit vertical element. I mean, just think of it like this, Cease, right? What if Marcus Valdez-Scantling caught all the passes? You know,
Amazing.
right? How does things change in this offense if the guy that gets behind the defense actually catches the pass every time or most of the time? Not to mention what Worthy can do with the space that's opened up by defenses that are trying to just take away the big play, which he can provide. Sua Mataya, um, this is the one where they move up just one pick. San Francisco lets them move up one pick. This is a draft where when you're taking your developmental tackle, second, third, fourth round, that's good. That's really good. I think one of the things that people maybe don't understand about offensive tackle is it is akin to quarterback in so much is that even if you find players that even have the stuff that hey, you can start at tackle in the NFL with this package to start with. Just like with quarterbacks, those guys shouldn't fall very far in the draft. They're not first round picks because they're not there yet. But we see those guys get taken in the first round sometimes because it's that scarce of a position and it's that important of a position. So for the Chiefs to get someone in Sua Mataya who projects as if you can coach this guy up, you've got top half of the league starting tackle. You're letting them reload at an insanely important position at a cost that is very, very reasonable. You mentioned Wiley, just a really solid tight end. I mean, athletically, he's not going to blow the doors off of anybody. He's not going to be a kind of tight end, I think, that is a passing game weapon, but he's going to be competent and he's going to win at the catch point. He's going to be, I think Dane Brugler might have called him like a post up tight end. That's fine. Patrick Mahomes will know what to do with that. Okay, Norzad or Hicks, versatility. Hicks was Dane Brugler's number one safety. Okay, a versatile safety, someone they can develop. It certainly can be the best safety in this class. Norzad, a play over tool center, another one of these offensive linemen that he plays the position the way you want him to. He doesn't have top end NFL tools. That's fine. That's fine. Norzad. Haddon is a cover two type corner. Again, they can get some more out of him. Hansen, a nice project off offensive guard to end up the draft. That's fine with your last pick. But yeah, sickening. Sickening is a good word to describe what this team was able to do. Someone stalking me if you're over on YouTube.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube. Hunger Cats. Fabian Lovett, undrafted. My God. Again. Undrafted. Fabian Lovett could have been a fourth round pick, right? High
Yeah.
Opal. Fabian Lovett can knife through defensive line. Is he Verse or Fisk? No, but he was part of that. Now the Chiefs got part of that. So put a pin in it in the Florida State defensive tackle.
Yeah, they got a couple undrafted running backs. Amani Bailey, a bowling ball, like a 5'7", 200 guy with good feet. You can do something with that. Carson Steele is a strong and big running back, not necessarily fast, but a rare like a power back or a back that has some size and some strength as a third down back.
Yeah, there you go. Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders getting the best tight end in this class and getting Brock Bowers. They're in the first round. Okay, they didn't get Michael Penix. They didn't get Jaden Daniels. They got Brock Bowers. You're going to be fine. And I actually like Aiden O'Connell. I mean, maybe I shouldn't. And obviously Penix, who can absolutely sling it, would have been brilliant for that team. Jaden goes without saying. And yeah, they would have even been an option for Bo Nix there. Jackson Powers Johnson. We can talk plenty about Brock Powers. Trust me. One of the rookies we're going to talk about the most on this show is Brock Bowers as that weapon. I don't care if it's Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew thrown to him or whatever, but Bowers deserves plenty of praise for that pick. Jackson Powers Johnson. I had 3 teams tell me in the 20s we're going to take him. So in my mock, I can't remember where I had him, but I was like, okay, he's going to be taken in the 20s. He fell to the second round. So it's like, all right, you get a great center who's got his own hamburger named after him in Eugene, which is fantastic. Delmar Glaze, Maryland offensive tackle in the third. DeCameron Richardson, Mississippi State corner in the fourth. Tommy Eichenberg, Ohio State linebacker. And he's a true Ohio State linebacker in the fifth. Dylan Lob, New Hampshire running back in the sixth. He had some pre-draft buzz in the Twitterverse. Trey Taylor, I really like. Air Force safety, saw him at the Shrine Bowl. Obviously mature and lunch pail and do everything type of guy. MJ Devonshire, Pittsburgh corner to wrap things up in the seventh.
The Raiders don't get their quarterback. When 6 quarterbacks go in the first 12 and you're 13 and you need a quarterback, that's not a good situation unless it means one of the best overall football players in this draft, maybe the best football player. We may look back and Bowers may end up being the best player from this draft. Depends on how he's used. And there's a little bit of Kyle Pitts to this where you want to see the usage line up with the strengths. But I like this as a pick. Well, hey, you're at Bowers fall to 13. We could use him. Yeah, they took Michael Mayer last year, but Bowers is so impactful from the moment he showed up at Georgia.
Bowers is a
And
slot, and I think he's the third best player in this draft behind Caleb and Marvin.
right,
So it's like,
right,
yeah, you got Mayer as the Y. Guess who's the F now?
right, right. And this is a foundational player, like you said, no quarterback, but this is gonna help the quarterback eventually. And hey, give Aiden O'Connell another chance, or Gardner Minshew if O'Connell fails. They get a starting center in the second round, best center in this draft by most estimation. Glaze and a left tackle to offensive guard type. This guy you can fit in somewhere in the future. Richardson, it just comes down to this. He's a defensive back, so it's not quite Al Davis wide receiver. 6'2", and he runs a 4.34. So it's like Tariq Woolen. I'm not saying he's going
Right.
to be Tariq Woolen, but
Right.
you just say, okay, well, we'll see. We can work with that. Eichenberg is a classic 2-down thumper, Laub, I think, receiving back, which I think you can see him supplant Amir Abdullah at some point,
Sure.
and
Mhm.
you need that piece with Zamir White, and he maybe can do a little bit. Austin Eckler is our model here, right? For a running back who gets on the field because of his receiving ability, but then once he's on the field for his receiving ability, his team says, well, we underestimated him a little bit as a runner. Not a lead back, not a guy that's going to carry the ball 250 times, but for fantasy, let's keep him on our radar. Taylor, it's a good third day pick. You get the Jim Thorpe Award winner and All-American, Ed Reed's cousin. That's a pretty good guy to have when
Yeah.
you're a safety to
Right. Right.
call up, talk
Resource.
ball. Yeah. Valid reactions. So it's one of those players at safety. I think that measurables at safety in particular can be very deceptive because instincts cut what 1/10, 2/10 of a second off of your 40 time. If you're reading the play, if you're reacting on time, or no matter how fast you are, if it's not in the right direction because you're not seeing and processing what you're seeing, then it doesn't matter. So I like this pick. And Devonshire, I got to mention Aliquippa if you don't know about Aliquippa, the number of Hall of Famers from a little steel town just outside of Pittsburgh. Yeah, look it up. Another Aliquippa player, and length, speed, developmental cornerback here. So a lot of things to work with here: speed, size, just good football players who can start right away. And the Raiders hopefully are going to be patient with Antonio Pierce because they don't have a quarterback yet.
Yeah. And if we compare like the new coaches, Gerard Mayo, you didn't need to take a quarterback now. And even though they wanted Penix and they might have taken Nix and they certainly wanted Jaden, I love Antonio. I'm Facebook friends with him.
Mhm.
But like I think he's gonna do it the right way, which is gonna require some patience. Sorry to pot stoner degenerate Jason out there, who's a big Raiders fan up there. You got your Slurpee, your Big Gulp, and, your Rocky Mountain Kush, so I think you're good.
Yeah, always good.
Well, I talk about Rocky Mountain Kush because 'cause I'm looking over these undrafted guys. I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, I might have seen some on the All-Star road trip, but nothing that's praiseworthy." So,
Yeah,
Blue, it's
I mean,
on you, buddy.
Tulu Griffin is a receiver that has some speed, has some return ability, can do some things with the ball in his hands. Maybe not the best route runner yet, but practice squad return guy candidate to if he can develop into something. Maybe we'll hear more about Griffin.
Yeah, maybe we'll know more then. Let's know more about the final team as we wrap up here on the draft recap. It's Audible, Cecil Lammy, Sigmund Bloom, do the YouTube things. It is the Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh and Joe Alt at 5. Yes, it makes sense. Yes, that's Jim Harbaugh. Yes, he's going to build in the trenches, and that's fantastic. All right. He's got his quarterback. Now he's got to go win. He's going to do that with running the ball and Joe Alt protecting the quarterback and pushing people around. Notre Dame offensive tackle, seen as the best tackle in this class, arguably, whatever. Lad McConkey in the second. How in the hell does a Cooper Cup clone fall to the second round? Did the NFL just doesn't learn, right? They're just like, hey, we've seen this before. It was on red turf, and then at the Senior Bowl coming out of Eastern Washington, his name's Cooper Cup. They see Lad McConkey and they're like, nah, nah. And I'm really going to point, not that I don't like Ricky Pearsall,
Hmm.
but I'm really going to point at the 49ers to be like, what the hell, bro?
Hmm.
What the hell? If I ever have an audience with John Lynch, I wouldn't say what the hell, bro, but I would say like, why, well, McConkey, like Persall versus McConkey. Walk me through that. Tell me about it.
Hmm.
And of course, John, fantastic man and knows ball, but like that decision is interesting because McConkey should have been picked in the 20s, if not even in the teens, and he's that good. So yeah, way to go. Good job, Jimmy Harbaugh. Junior Colson, linebacker, Michigan, of course. Justin Eboge, sorry, Alabama defensive tackle. Tahib Still, Maryland corner in the fifth. Cam Hart, Notre Dame corner in the fifth. Kimani Vidal, Troy running back in the sixth. That's put a pin in that. Brennan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, in the seventh, falling to the seventh. Could have been a early day 3 pick. And certainly a lot of people, that was the largest question roll around on Saturday at the end of the draft. Cornelius Johnson, Michigan wide receiver there in the seventh as well. So this feels like a Jim Harbaugh draft, Bloom, for multiple reasons.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh and Joe Horitz. Got to mention Joe Horitz. I guess the origin story there is that Horitz had just gotten his start with the Ravens as an assistant on offense, and that was when Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback for the Ravens in 1998. 26 years later, they're running a team. Let's see how that team's going to do. Sometimes coaches just tell the truth. Look, Jim Harbaugh. I mean, if Jim Harbaugh is playing mind games, I think it's accidentally. I mean, even the blowing up of JJ McCarthy. I mean, he's obvious. He was obvious when he was trying to create buzz about JJ McCarthy, which would have benefited the Chargers. And he was being obvious when he said offensive line. Yeah, that's how you build. You offensive line increases value everybody else on the team. So you take Joe Alt, and here we go, Alt and Slater, and you start what you need for this offensive line. And they make a small move up for McConkey. Yeah, I love this pick. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say someone's crazy if they take McConkey as high as like sixth in their rookie draft, because what do we have in McConkey? He's fast, 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 fast. He can uncover like nobody's business. Okay, he can separate. Maybe as a slot only. You don't want to get him tangling with bump and run physical coverage. You don't want him having to out muscle anybody or out catch radius anybody at the catch point. But he's not the kind of receiver when you're fast and you can separate. That's not as much of a problem. Here's where I think it gets really fun with McConkey. Cease is shot plays off of play action. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
just and then also just Justin Herbert extending plays. I think that this could be really exciting. There's no real competition for him, honestly, to become Justin Herbert's favorite target right away. You mentioned Cooper Kupp, who was a third round pick, but isn't Kupp's not as fast as McConkey. But you can just imagine McConkey being a guy that Herbert is just looking for. Just where's McConkey for fantasy? This is really exciting. Colson, here's your green dot linebacker. Jim Harbaugh's going to bring some Michigan guys with him,
Oh
right? Was
yeah.
it going to be Blake Corum? And in the third round, it was Colson. Boigbe, he's big. He can play all over the line. He's productive. Still, here's your developmental corner, who also is productive on the ball. Slot corner, though. That's why he's falling in the draft. Here's another developmental corner in Hart, who's got length, who's got athletic ability. Vidal, I think, can start for this team this year. I think that you have a running back here that has more to offer than Gus Edwards. He has more to offer than J.K. Dobbins. I don't think you can overdraft him in a rookie draft. Take him in the top of the third. He easily we could see him rising up like Damian Pierce did in his rookie year. By the time we get to late August, he could be a 6th, 7th round pick in redraft leagues because this is the guy has the most to offer in the backfield. Just like we were talking about Estime with Denver. Rice, it's the Chargers, so there's some opportunity at outside receiver when you look at these last two guys. Jay Rice's son, you want him to win the ball downfield. And then Johnson, who is another Michigan receiver, highly athletic, not used a lot, size too, and another Michigan guy that Harbaugh brings with him.
Yeah. Who do you know and who do you trust? Well, undrafted wise, Akeem Dent. He was a late round safety I was looking out for. Like, okay, Broncos, could you get this guy on your roster as a late round pick? Well, he goes undrafted to the Chargers. So they got a lot here, Bloom. Anyone stand out to you?
See, so if you're a coach, especially if you're focused on the offensive side, right? Um, who's often the unsung hero of a team? The backup offensive lineman,
Mhm.
right? The backup offensive lineman. I think we don't understand in hindsight how often an injury on the offensive line, we just say, well, what happened? That offense just sucked today. Was like a key offensive lineman was out and the backup just wasn't up to the task. Well, Carson Barnhart for Michigan last year started games at right tackle, left tackle, and guard. So Jim Harbaugh probably took note of that. You know, this guy came through for the team at 3 different positions on the offensive line when we needed him to. He brought him in as an undrafted free agent.
It's good for you too,
There it
buddy.
is. Yeah, well, I mean, I think, and I appreciate everybody, those of you that have been doing this exercise with us, or if you're new to this, because one of the things I think the Audible always has embodied is we talk about football the way you talk about football. We think about football the way you think about football. And the genesis of this show, where this is really like the anniversary of the show.
Yes.
Because the genesis of the show was, as you started out with, Cease, our 3-hour conversation about the draft and just how excited we were to talk to somebody else who was just studied and cared about this stuff and had some thoughts, had some theories, had some ideas about it, not just receiving information, but trying to synthesize new information and thinking about it. And then, hey, maybe put it to test in some fantasy leagues. But just doing this journey, Cease, where you say the name of every player that was drafted, where we also acknowledge that undrafted free agents are players that will have a consequential part in these. Some of them we're going to try to guess at 1 or 2 maybe, but that's also part of the story of everything that went down over this big weekend, and just letting it all wash over you. And I'll give you my knee-jerk takes, and Cease will give you his, but it's, again, the NFL is like the great American novel. It's the great American, like, Dickensian, Shakespearean scale story of so many characters and so many interdependent, interlocking stories. These are the new characters. These are the new storylines. These are the new twists for the existing storylines of these franchises, which we have been riding and following through the roller coasters. And just going through this exercise is refreshing. And again, I'll end on the note that the draft is about birth. It's about rebirth. We're going to recognize what's been accomplished up to this point, but really we're looking to what's to come. And I think for all of us to get a little more of that into our lives, because every day we are born anew, to feel that refreshing renewal is something we can all use.
He is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammy. The show is at the Audible. We appreciate each and every one of you out there. Help us grow the YouTube channel by doing the YouTube things like comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And we appreciate you all for doing just that. He's Sig. I'm Cease. We are the Audible. Everyone out there, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Peace to you all. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.